self-care is also not arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. This is the type of thing that I see posted on social media, typically from the left, and what they're doing is they're explaining why they should never have to engage with Trump supporters ever, because Trump supporters just don't listen. They don't listen to logic. They don't listen to reason. Facts don't matter to them. They're just in a cult, and there's nothing I can say or do to convince them that they're wrong, and I just shouldn't even have to engage with it. It is not good for my mental health to engage with it. And of course, there's so much wrong with that sentence, right? There's so much wrong with that beautiful run-on sentence that I just said. It's wrong that Trump supporters aren't armed with facts and data. It's wrong that they don't listen to reason. And it's also wrong to not think that you have an obligation on just a human practical level to engage in some sort of coherent discussion with people who you might disagree with. But listen, I don't want to talk about politics today. I don't want to talk about this in relation to politics. I want to talk about this in relation to real life. Real life, because politics, for me at least, it's like a game. It's like sport. It's fun. It's an amusement. And, I don't engage in conversations about politics from an altogether serious bent. Yes, I would like people to be more civil. Yes, I would like people to actually be talking to each other. However, I am much more interested and focused in helping people to be successful in the real world. And I'm telling you, the things that are happening in politics, or rather the things that are happening in culture, it's probably a more accurate view, things that are happening in culture are making their way into the work environment. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I'm an organizational psychologist, right? That's what I do in the real world. I work with organizations to make sure that they are getting the most out of their team members. And in the course of doing that work, I have to work with a lot of young professionals, and I love it. I love young professionals. Really, like the incitement of a young professional who hasn't been sullied by the working world yet. It is a fantastic thing to behold. However, in recent years, there have started to be some problems. So here's what I find of kids that are just coming out of college, and I'm sorry, I'm old. I'm not as old as some, I acknowledge, but I'm going to call people that are just coming out of college kids. It is the frame of reference that I have. And frankly, they're acting like children a lot of times. They kind of deserve it. So here's what I find with kids that have just gotten out of college. They mostly don't know how to write. They mostly do not know how to think. They cannot think critically about things. They lack confidence. No one's ever taught them how to be confident. They usually don't even know how to find a job on their own. They have to be coached into that. They're always looking for people to solve their problems for them, so their colleges haven't taught them that good problem-solving techniques that are very, very useful in the real world. But you know what they do know? They know microaggressions. Colleges have taught them microaggressions. They've got those down pat. They know that they are oppressed almost no matter what, unless they are white men, because white men have been taught that they are not oppressed, but everyone else is oppressed, and they know that. And they run to HR every time someone does something to oppress them, or looks at them the wrong way, or asks them to do something that is their job to do, but the person that asked them to do it is a white man. These are the issues that are starting to come with young professionals in the workplace today. Colleges, thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough for this gift of working for years on my PhD to have to clean up this BS. Thank you. All right. But here's the thing. In the coddling of these students that has occurred throughout the course of their lives, a couple things has happened that are really important to the working world. Number one, these students they're not students anymore, they're professionals now. These children have no idea how to productively work with conflict. Now, conflict is one of the absolute key things that we need people to be able to engage with in the workplace. And we're going to talk about why that is in a second. But the other thing that's happened, because these children, young adults, what have you, are not able to productively engage with conflict, they in turn have not developed the resilience required to be effective in the working world. So what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to engage with adversity Or I'll put it another way, engage with something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Go after it, tackle that thing, and get back up again. That is what resilience is. And the highest performing teams that we can measure in the working world, guess what? They're made up of highly resilient individuals. There's also other components as well. A group of highly resilient individuals will not necessarily come together to form a highly resilient team. That's another video for another day. But what I want to focus on today is, one, why is engaging with productive conflict important? Why is arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you, maybe in the case of this quote, an important part of the business world? How is that going to make you more successful? And two, we're going to talk about the different aspects of resiliency. And as a little extra bonus, I'm going to give you a free little quiz that you can take to see where your resiliency is at and what you can do to improve it. So let's talk about conflict first. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, so this chart we're seeing right here, this is from Patrick Lencioni's 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. Now, if you have never read 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, I need you to just pause the video, pause it right now, go to Amazon, make that purchase, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, Patrick Lencioni. This book is magical. First of all, it's a very quick read. He writes it in the form of a story, so it's not like a boring business book, but it will explain almost every single problem that you encounter in the working world. It will. Go buy this book. It's fabulous. But one of the things that he teaches in this book are these 5 dysfunctions of a team. And you can see, for anyone that took Psychology 101 in college, this looks a little bit like Maslow's pyramid, doesn't it? Now, we all remember Maslow's pyramid. I'm not going to review Maslow right now. You can go Google that, watch another video. But essentially, what Maslow's pyramid is the things that are at the bottom of the pyramid. These are things that have to exist in order to move up to that next level. So in this case, we're seeing that if an absence of trust exists on a team, then the team is not going to be able to manage their fear of conflict. Ooh, that word conflict. It's already popping up, isn't it? But let's talk about what each of these things mean. These are Patrick Lencioni's classic 5 dysfunctions of a team. Number 1, absence of trust. Number 2, fear of conflict. Number 3, lack of commitment. Number 4, avoidance of accountability. And number 5, inattention to results. So let's start with absence of a team and talk about why that's important. This is the psychological safety component of the team. What does psychological safety mean? Well, this is a term that's been around since, I believe, like the mid to late 80s. It's been around a while, but it gained a lot of prominence about 3 or 4 years ago, I think, with Google's Project Aristotle. Essentially what Google did is they took all of the teams that work at Google and they did a big study on those teams, because what they wanted to find out is, why do some teams at Google outperform other teams? And so they engaged in this massive study of all their teams to try to figure out what was the difference between the high-performing teams and the kind of regular teams. Now, there are no low-performing teams at Google, right? But you do have really high-performing ones and then kind of like your average performers, which is still high performer for like normal places. What they found is that the number one thing that set those high-performing teams apart from every other type of team was psychological safety. Psychological safety is when team members trust one another, when they feel like the people on their team have their back, when they're going to help them overcome obstacles, when they are able to give of their resources without being bribed or cajoled to help support other people on their team, right? Lencioni defines it, this absence of trust, as the fear of being vulnerable with team members, which prevents the team from building trust within the team. That's what we're talking about when we're saying psychological safety. If you do not work in a psychologically safe working environment, that is going to fundamentally impact your team's ability to achieve their highest results. So why might that be? Why is psychological safety right down at the very bottom? Well, number 2, fear of conflict. This is the next dysfunction that exists on the team. Now, I told you at the very beginning that having conversations with people who disagree with you is important to helping your career. It's not just about bridging the political divide. It's also about getting things done. So why is conflict important? Let's look at how this is defined. Fear of conflict. The desire to preserve, I'm going to start again. The desire to preserve artificial harmony stifles the occurrence of productive ideological conflict. Listen, anytime you get a group of people together, you're going to have conflict. But we have to start reframing the way that we look at conflict. We have to start saying, how can conflict be good for us? How can it serve us? Think about the discussions you see happening on YouTube. Think about some of those really popular discussions, maybe like you watch Dave Rubin or Joe Rogan or any of these people that are actively engaging in discussions with people who disagree with them. Fundamentally, they're having conflict with each other, but they're having productive conflict. They're not at each other's throats. They're not trying to beat each other down. They're not shouting each other into a corner. They're not saying, I can't possibly have a conversation with you because you are committed to misunderstanding me. It just doesn't work like that, right? They're engaging in productive conflict. Productive conflict is necessary for teams to be successful because it helps them to achieve a greater understanding together than they could on their own. And it also helps people to call out problems that might come up rather than maintaining this artificial sense of harmony. So that ability to engage in productive conflict where it's not about ego, it's not about making people feel bad, it's not about getting your way. It's about coming to that higher level of cohesion to get those results together. That's what we're looking for. And that's what I want to talk about in relation to this photo. But I want to go through the rest of these just to make sure you have the frame of reference. So our next one up is lack of commitment. We've taken care of trust. We've taken care of conflict. Now we have to work on commitment. So how is this being defined? A lack of clarity or buy-in preventing team members from making decisions that will stick. Buy-in is one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around at work all the time, right? And people think that what buy-in means is getting people to agree with you. No, that's not what buy-in means. In fact, one of the things Lencioni specifically says in this book is that you do not need to have people agree with you in order to gain their buy-in. You simply have to help them feel heard, considered, and understood within the context of whatever decision is made. Gee, that sounds an awful lot like having conversations with people who might disagree with you, doesn't it? It does. Once we take care of lack of commitment or that lack of buy-in, the next thing we have to do is get to avoidance of accountability. So this dysfunction is defined as the need to avoid interpersonal discomfort, preventing team members from holding one another accountable for their behaviors or performance. Essentially what this means is you say you're going to do a thing, but then you don't do the thing. This is about getting people to follow through on their commitments, fundamental to team success. And guess what? If you're still struggling with this fear of conflict, then how can people be held accountable? If you can't in a meeting say, Johnny Jones, what the what? You said you were going to have this done this week. Where is it? That means you still have this fear of conflict. That's something that's going to have to be fixed in order to really get up to that level of fixing avoidance to accountability. And guess what? You can't get up to your highest level results, that very top of the pyramid, without these four things. So inattention to results is our last dysfunction of a team. It's defined as the pursuit of individual goals and personal status, eroding the focus on the collective success. So when I am measuring team resiliency in organizations, here, fun fact. So what I do in one of my many jobs that I do is I actually use a tool that I can go in and measure the resiliency of any single working group within an organization. So I can see how are they doing, not just in each of these areas. It's not exactly the same model, but it's pretty similar. And we can assess how resilient they are as a team and what they need to do in order to get even more resilient. Now, the number one thing, first of all, only 2% of teams are highly resilient. Almost every team thinks they're highly resilient. Only 2% of teams are highly resilient. And this measurement has been used at some of the biggest name companies in the world. You would absolutely know their names if I said it. So what prevents teams from getting to that high resiliency status? Well, it has to do with their willingness to give of their resources to help and support other people on the team. And that is directly in line with what Lencioni is talking about here in terms of an inattention to results. That is the highest, the fifth dysfunction of a team, if you will, the very last thing you can fix. Because what this is defined as is putting the personal before the collective. Now I know. For some of you political folks, if I say individual versus collective and I say collectivism is actually the good thing, you have just, you like want to run away right now. I get it. I'm not talking about identity politics. I'm not talking about socialism. I'm talking about the working environment. This is a fundamentally different thing. When you are on a team in a working environment, the collective is actually a positive thing because you're not paid to be necessarily an individual. And also what we know is that individuals in a work environment, not in life, in a work environment, cannot achieve their highest level of performance within an organization without having the backing of a cohesive team behind them. So again, we need to separate the two. Politics is playtime. This is real world stuff right here. All right, so these are our 5 dysfunctions, and I want to make it really clear about why this type of conflict is important. Listen, we literally cannot get to buy-in, we can't get to accountability, and we cannot get our highest level of results if people cannot engage in productive conflict. And colleges, congratulations workforce, are delivering you a slew of new workers every single year who they have actively taught that you don't need to have conversations with people who disagree with you. You just need your safe space, and the safe space is all that we need. And God help businesses that are creating safe spaces. God help you. You're going to run into a lot of problems. You're going to start not being able to remain profitable, and you're going to wonder why. And guess what? It's all because, or not all because, but it's at least starting from a place of your team members not being able to engage in conflict. Okay, so how do we start to change this? How do we start to move the needle? Well, I want to introduce you to one of the things I do, and don't worry, I'm not selling you anything. I'm giving you a freebie today, but I have to give you the context for this. So one of the things I do is I'm the Chief Science Officer for Rallybright. Rallybright is an amazing platform of assessments. I am so happy and proud of the work that we're doing, and it allows people to assess themselves and assess their team along a different variety of things. Now, there are a lot of assessments on the platform. This is not a demo, but what I want to talk to you about today is the Rallybright Active Resiliency Quotient. And so what this is this is a little freebie assessment. You can go on this website and take it right now. It's rallybright.com. And what you want to do is you just want to click over to this platform, go down here to the profile. That's the one you're looking for. And this is an assessment that will help you understand what your personal level of resilience is. Personal resiliency is a critical component of your ability to be successful in the working world. And that is true of people who are just starting out their careers. And that is true of people who have been in their careers 20, 30, 40 years. Your ability to achieve your career goals, to go as far as you want to go, is going to directly depend on your level of resiliency. And so I just want to show you this quiz really quickly. So what you're going to do when you get into the platform is you're going to come, let's see. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do is you're going to come and ignore some of the stuff on my screen. You want to come over to my profile right here, and that's going to take you over to the screen of profiles. Now, you're not going to see everything I see here because I have access to all the things, and unless you pay for a premium profile, you don't get access to everything. Listen, we also have an individual conflict style assessment. If you want to know how you do with conflict, how you approach conflict, that's available to you as well. Of course, we have a disc profile because I am the biggest disc nerd on the planet. I actually wrote all the content for this. I'm really proud of it. But what I want to show you here is our active resiliency quotient. So listen, not everyone is above average when it comes to resiliency. I literally just took this test again earlier today. You can see I'm like average. I'm average. I'm not perfect. This is not about being perfect. This is about finding out how you can improve. So it measures your personal resiliency along 5 core dimensions. And I just want to talk about those dimensions really quickly so that you understand the components that are going to help you be a highly resilient individual, someone who can manage discomfort, get back up when you've been knocked down, all that good stuff. So we start off with readiness. And these are my scores right here. You can see some of them are high, some of them are low. There's no shame. I don't mind sharing this stuff out. Readiness is all about being attentive. Higher readiness scores suggest you are able to focus or refocus your attention as your thoughts, feeling, and situation as your thoughts, feelings, or the situation dictates. Lower scores suggest you might be someone who gets caught up in the past or worries a lot about the future, and as a result spends less time in the present. So why is focusing on the present moment so important to your individual resilience? Well, this is something I actually teach in my book, Zen Your Work, as well. It's one of my core components. And the thing of it is we really can be in one of 3 states at any given time. We can be thinking about the past, which we cannot go back and change. We do not have time machines. We can be worrying about what might happen in the future, or we can focus on what is going on in front of us right now. The only productive place to put your attention is the present moment, the gracious present moment, because that is really the only thing that you have control over at the end of the day. So let's talk about the past. What happens when you're thinking about things that happened in the past? And let's just be honest here, folks. Most of the time when we're thinking about the past, we're thinking about things that we don't like, things that didn't quite go according to plan, right? And when you spend time thinking about those things, what happens in your brain is you are literally reliving those emotions, because your brain does not know the difference between emotions that you have based on things that have happened in the past and emotions that you are having based on things that are happening to you right now. For your brain, there is no difference between the two. So if we spend time worrying about the past, we're just reliving things that we can't go back and change. The other place that we waste time is worrying about what's going to happen in the future. Are you a psychic? No. The answer is no. I don't even need to wait for you to answer. The answer is no, you are not a psychic. Therefore, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. Sometimes we think we know, but really we have no flipping idea what's going to happen in the future. So it doesn't make any difference whether you worry about it or whether you don't. The only thing you can do is focus on what is in front of you right now. That's going to help your resilience. All right, acceptance. Yay, above average score from me on acceptance. As acceptance measures the quality of the relationship you have with yourself. Go me. Can you metaphorically take yourself out to dinner and a movie, or do you constantly beat yourself up, criticize who you are, and spend your time thinking about the person you feel you should be? High acceptance scores suggest you are more self-aware than self-critical. Lower scores indicate there is a pretty large gap between who you feel you are and who you want to be, or people tell you that you should be. Listen, how we treat other people, how we work with other people, is a direct reflection of how we feel about ourselves. Almost every single challenge you have with anyone in your life is a reflection of how you feel about yourself. That is the way it is. That's why we never want to focus our energy on trying to change other people or trying to control other people. It simply makes no sense. You have to focus on yourself first. You don't have control over them. You only have control over you. And frankly, accepting yourself just as you are. No human being out there is perfect. Not a single one of you. Nope, not even you. Not even you. You're not perfect. You have strengths, things that are really amazing that you should embrace and love about yourselves. And we all have glorious flaws that are just things that we don't do so well. Listen, I am about like the worst speller in the history of the world. I'm also a horrible proofreader. So basically every tweet I send has a typo in it. Every single one. I don't know where my edit button is, but I might murder a puppy in cold blood to get that edit button. No, I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I would never do that. That's a horrible thing to say, but I really do want that edit button. But listen, we have to accept those things, because if we just spend time worrying about, I'm not perfect, my hair doesn't look good, all this stuff, people don't like me, I weigh too much, no one listens to me. It doesn't like, those are things you can fix, okay? They don't matter. And even if you can't fix them, just embrace it. It's who you are. Some things we just can't change. It's okay. Everyone has those things. Next up, we have insight. Insight reflects your ability to communicate and experience the feelings of emotion. High scores indicate a fluency in describing how you feel about yourself, about others, about a situation you find yourself in, or how you experience someone else's emotional state. Lower scores suggest a reticence or inability to describe, express, or experience emotion, and a high probability of fussing or becoming the emotion that you feel. You know why those college students need their safe spaces? Because they have low scores when they're on the insight meter. They allow themselves to become the emotions that they feel, and no one has taught them how to do otherwise. Again, this is something their parents should teach them, probably something they should learn in grade school. I don't believe that we can rely anymore on the education system to do anything that is actually productive in the real world. Again, they're great at teaching what microaggressions are. Fantastic. Thumbs up. They're not good at actually real world useful things. So we need to be helping people learn how to do this, or even better, if you, listen, I don't think anyone that needs a safe space has made it this far in the video, but just in case you have, you need to teach yourself how to do this. We are always in control of how we feel. One of the biggest lies that has been perpetrated on society in general, especially now, is that the emotions that we experience are a result of things that happen to us. That is a lie. That is not the truth. Psychological research does not back it up. In fact, there's mountains of positive psychology research to say that our emotions are things that we choose. And our emotions will dictate the experience we have. So I'm going to say that one more time so it's really clear. Most people think that the emotions that they feel are a result of things that happen to them. That is not true. How you choose your emotions, the emotions that you embrace, the emotions that you commit to, that is going to impact how you experience the world. If you haven't wrapped your head around that one, don't worry about it just yet. It's a difficult one to wrap your head around if you've never heard that concept before. But we're going to move on for today. Maybe I'll do another video on that one. Next up, we're going to look at intention. Do you live an authentic life based on a set of clearly defined values? Or are you more concerned with fitting in and gaining approval for how you behave? Does that describe social justice warriors to anyone else? I think it does. High levels of intention describe a person who can be themselves across many different situations. Lower scores indicate someone who struggles to be genuine or who puts on a greater priority on fitting in than being being true to who they are and what they might believe. Listen, this is why I love meditation so much. Meditation is like your magic bullet to getting more clear about your intention, more clear about who you are, what you believe. If you aren't a fan of meditating though, part of what is a key component of being resilient is the ability to stretch outside your comfort zone, is the ability to consider those new ideas. I gotta tell you, when I started waking up from my Trump derangement syndrome, it was like a playground of these new ideas that I hadn't allowed myself to consider before, and I really have had and continuing to go through a process of reevaluating where I stand on different issues to make sure that I'm really clear about what my values are and to be living by those values. And lastly, we have action. Action measures your level of optimism, persistence, and drive. A person who scores highly on action is proactive, hopeful, and tenacious. Lower scores reflect someone who has a more pessimistic or cautious outlook and a tendency towards procrastination and lower levels of persistence. I admit I have a tendency towards procrastination. That is one of my glorious flaws. I wait until the very last minute to do most things. But that's something that I need to know, and something that this little quiz has clearly pointed out that I need to work on. So those are the areas that we use to measure personal resiliency. Again, this is a quiz that you can take. You can get this baseline information completely for free. All you need to do is head over to rallybright.com, sign up for your profile. You can also go here to sign up for your basic freebie profile, and that'll get you all set up. But I just want to show you these other two things that you can get with the profile. Listen, it's also going to tell you where your greatest strengths are, what you do really well, also where your greatest vulnerabilities are, the things that you really need to work on. And then it's also going to provide you a roadmap for the things that you need to work on just as an individual in order to get more highly resilient. But just coming back to our original image here, self-care is also not arguing with people who are committed to misunderstanding you. There's one question on the resiliency test that I just want to show you. This is one question. I wish I could take away all the difficult or painful experiences I have had in my life. I'm just like, spoiler alert, guys. If you answer that this is almost always true, you do not have a high level of resiliency. It is those challenges, those painful moments, those difficult conversations with people who you think are committed to disagreeing with you. It's those moments that make us stronger, that build our resiliency. And our resiliency is a key component of how we thrive in the world. Stop waiting for people to hand something to you. Stop waiting for people to give you free college or pay back your student loans for you, or do anything that, the more socialist candidates are promising. Stop waiting for some other people to do it for you. If you are able to develop the resiliency to manage those difficult or painful experiences in your life, or perhaps even to change your relationship with them, to see it as just a part of your journey, you are going to be more successful. You're going to be more successful in your career, and you're going to be more successful in life in general. And as an extra added bonus, you're going to be a whole heck of a lot happier to boot. I promise you, if you are able to do this, if you're able to step outside of your safe space and do this productively, you are going to be so much happier. And you won't be scared of having conversations with people who may disagree with you.